Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to do a little bit of mussar. We're going to do bitahon. We're going to do chapter 5. We're going to read the introduction and do half of it, and then we'll do another half for the next time. We're just doing a little bit of mussar every day. Let's get you through the holidays. And I haven't been dedicating these, but I guess they could be considered like shiurim. So I'd like to dedicate this to Rab Bernstein. And I'd like to also dedicate this in memory of my mother, Iris Elizabeth Roque. May their memories be before blessing. Who would you like to dedicate this shiur to? May their memories be for a blessing. Let's go. Okay. So remember, we are doing our mussar on bitahon. Bitahon is trust or reliance on Hashem. Emunah is faith. It's like a theoretical. I have faith in Hashem, but then you lose your job. What happens to that faith? That faith has to come down and transform into something you do. You're gonna have reliance on Hashem that He'll provide, and what actions are you gonna take so that faith now becomes practical. And a lot of times you don't have to do anything as in you have to touch something. A lot of times it's even just consulting the Lord. That's doing something. Or talking to a wise person. That's doing something when you have a situation. So let's read this introduction. Nile, really? Oh my gosh, here we go. So in this chapter, Hova Halavavo discusses how a person with proper bitahon acts in real life and shows the difference. Can you hear me? And shows the difference between him and a person without proper bitahon. So we learned in the previous chapters that even one who has bitahon is obligated. I see better without my glasses. Obligated to invest effort, his hishtadlut, in meeting his material needs, unless he has risen to the level of spirituality where Hashem frees him of that obligation. Externally, then, the action of this person who trusts in Hashem seems similar to those of a person who puts faith in his own prowess. Both of them work for a living. Both seek medical help when ill and so forth. Hova Halavav shows in this chapter how bitahon guides a person's manner of obtaining his income and other worldly needs, and how it elevates his actions and thoughts to a higher realm than those of a person who trusts in himself. That sounds good, don't it? Okay. In this chapter, Hova Halavavo focuses on the practical part of bitahon, on one's approach to matters of this world. That is the first 3 categories of chapter 4. So now to describe the difference between one who has bitahon in Hashem and another person who does not, in regard to how he approaches the means of earning a living and the other matters of the... Niall, stop it! The other matters... Niall! Excuse me. I was acting crazy. Here, get down. Okay. Now describe the difference between the one who has a bitahon and Hashem and the other person who does not, in regard to how he approaches the means of earning a living and other matters of this world. I will say that one who has bitahon and Hashem is different from one who does not have bitahon and Hashem in 7 areas. So this first area of distinction, accepting Hashem's judgment. So the first of the differences is the one who trusts in Hashem accepts his judgment and willingly in all matters and thanks him for the good and as well for the bad. He not only accepts the bad, but he also thanks Hashem for it, trusting that Hashem's judgment is correct. Now all of this takes time to practice and get to, but just to know that this is how it works is, Sage is teaching us how to think, how to see life. Okay. Let's hear. And the sages said in the Mishnah in Berachot 45a, a person is obligated to bless Hashem for the bad, just as he blesses Hashem for the good. The Gemara explains this to mean that one is obligated to accept the bad with the same joy as he accepts the good. And the Gemara supports the idea from verses in Tehillim, Proverbs, and Iyov, Job. With the famous words of Rav Akiva, a person should always be accustomed to say, whatever the merciful one does, he does for the best. But, okay, so let's get back. One who does not trust in Hashem takes credit for the good that he obtains. Ooh. And he becomes angry at Hashem for the bad. Ooh. All right, so that's the first area of distinction. The first part was one who trusts in Hashem. He thanks him for the good and the bad. And the second one, and the other person, he does not trust in Hashem. He takes credit for the good that happens and blames Hashem for the bad. That was the first area of distinction, accepting Hashem's judgment. The second area of distinction, peace of mind. The second difference between a person who has bitachon and one who lacks it, the one who trusts in Hashem has peace of mind in any situation, for he is satisfied with his lot, and his heart is at ease regarding any decrees that Hashem may ordain for him in the future. For he knows that the Creator will arrange those decrees for his benefit in both his present material world and his afterlife. Thus, he has no reason to worry about potential calamities and tragedies. Even times of danger, he is tranquil. He does what he can to avoid peril, fulfilling his requirement of hishtadlut, but then he's calm and accepting of whatever outcome Hashem will bring. As for the one who does not trust in Hashem, he is beset with constant anguish and protracted worry about the future, and grief and heartache never leave him, whether in good times or in bad. During good times, he has heartache because of his discontent with his situation and his constant aspiration to increase, add to, and amass possessions. So as our sages say, he who has 100 wants 200. He who has 100 wants 200. Since this person thinks that everything he has is a result of his own hard work, even when he's successful and has what he needs, he is aggravated because he feels that if he tried harder, he could have earned more. And no matter how much money he saves up, his lack of bitachon makes him worry about it. Makes him worry that it will not be enough for the future. Thus, for both reasons, he's wrapped up in all the pursuit of material wealth. And during bad times, he has heartache because he's disgusted by his situation, since it is contrary to his desire and conflicts with his nature and personality. And so said the wise one, Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, in Mishle, Proverbs, chapter 15, verse 15. All the days of a poor man are bad, but a good-hearted person is at a perpetual feast. Poor refers to someone who is poor in mind. That is, does not possess bitachon. Alternatively, poor means one who considers himself poor, even if he in fact is wealthy. His days are always bad because he's never content with his lot. By contrast, the good-hearted man, that is, the one who lives with bitachon, he's always at a perpetual feast. The feast lasts forever, since he's happy in all situations. The contrast here is not merely a matter of one's mood, but of one's relationship with Hashem. The happy person appreciates everything that Hashem does and thus is drawn closer to him. The unhappy person resents everything that Hashem does, including the good which he considers inadequate, and thus is distant from him. With their respective attitudes, the former serves Hashem, whereas the latter rebels against him. So, the third area of distinction is dealing with success or failure. So the first two differences were in one's attitude and feelings and his relationship with Hashem. The remaining differences manifest themselves in the person's actions as well. So the third difference between a person who has bitachon, trust or reliance on Hashem, and one who lacks it is the one who trusts in Hashem, although he engages in some means of earning a living or achieving other worldly benefits, he does not rely in his heart on those means. And he does not expect any benefit or harm from them unless that is Hashem's will. He knows that his success or harm depends solely on Hashem's will. If, for example, his occupation brings him profit or loss, it's because Hashem used that occupation as a means of carrying out his will. Rather, he engages in worldly means because he chooses to serve the Creator, who commanded a person to be involved in the world in order to inhabit it and enhance it. As Hovel Halavavo explained at the end of chapter 3, a person is commanded to engage in worldly pursuits in order to settle and improve the world, as it says, and he placed him in the Garden of Eden to work it and guard it. When the person with bitachon works for a living, he does so in order to fulfill this commandment. Therefore, if he should attain some benefit or some potential harm in if he should attain some benefit or some potential harm is deflected from him as a result of the means he chose to employ, he will thank Hashem alone for this. If, for example, his occupation brings him success, he will not develop a greater love and extra affection for that occupation, nor will he have more confidence in it than he did before. So, for example, his business was profitable or a particular remedy healed his sickness. So, as Hova Halavavo says in chapter 4, it is wrong to become enthused with one's profession when it is successful, because doing so will tend to weaken his bitahon in Hashem. So to the contrary, he will strengthen his trust in Hashem and let his heart rely on him without reference to the means through which his success came about. So to ensure that he does not get carried away with his occupation or the like, and does not come to think that it is the reason for his success, he will strive to reinforce his bitahon. And if, on the other hand, the occupation in which he engages does not bring him the desired benefit of earning a living, he knows and trusts that his livelihood will come to him whenever Hashem wants, through whichever avenue he wants. And Hova Halavavot's statement that a person is confident that his livelihood will come to him in some manner, which implies that Hashem will definitely send him sustenance. It reflects the principle mentioned in numerous times in this work, that Hashem guarantees every person to receive his basic livelihood as long as he lives. Wow, that's powerful. Accordingly, he will not become disgusted with the occupation when he chooses because of this lack of success. Accordingly, he will not become disgusted with the occupation to choose because of this lack of success. Nor will he stop engaging in it, since the reason he works at the occupation is solely in order to serve Hashem. So he originally involved himself in his occupation as a fulfillment of Hashem's mitzvah. Therefore, even for a period of time, he is unsuccessful. He will not be quick to abandon the occupation and search for another source of income. Rather, he will continue his efforts in that occupation, since he had chosen it with bitahon that Hashem would help him through that means. Okay, let me see. But as for one who does not trust in Hashem, he engages in worldly means because he relies on them to benefit him or to deflect harm from him. Accordingly, he behaves in the opposite manner of the one described above. If it turns out that the occupation he chose brings him benefit, he praises it. Oh, it's great. And he praises his diligence in it. His own diligence in it. He'll tout his occupation as the best. And he'll boast because he knows how to go about it in a way that's successful. He becomes excited about that occupation and he will not give consideration to any other. If, on the other hand, the occupation he chose does not turn out to be of benefit to him for a period of time, he will abandon it, become disgusted with it, and lose interest in it. So the fourth area of distinction is using extra funds. So the fourth difference between a person who has bitahon and one who lacks it is when the one who trusts in Hashem has any surplus of funds beyond what is required for his sustenance, he realizes that this was sent to him by Hashem for a purpose and knows that he will continue to provide. Accordingly, he will spend the surplus on what pleases the Creator, blessed be He, generously and good-heartedly. But one who does not trust in Hashem does not see the world and all that is in it as being sufficient for his livelihood and the satisfaction of his needs. No matter how much money he saved up, it's not enough because he's worried about what the future might bring. He's thus too protective of his money to use it to fulfill his obligations towards the Creator and towards other people. But rather than gaining anything, he harms himself because before he knows it, he will lose his money and will be left without it. Since that extra money was not given to him in order to save, but rather to spend on mitzvot, it will not remain in his possession. Hashem will cause an expense to arise, such as a medical bill, and his savings will be lost, or he'll be hacked, or something like that. As our sages say, the door that does not open for mitzvot, that is to give tzedakah, charity, will be open for the doctor. Oh my gosh. That's in Shir HaShirim Rabbah, verse 6:11. 2 verse 6:11. Oh wow. 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 I'm laughing because I think something like that just happened to me. Okay. The fifth area of distinction, choosing an occupation. The fifth difference between one who has a bitahon and one who does not is that one who trusts in Hashem engages in the worldly means of earning a livelihood, that is, an occupation. Not because he believes that this will enable him to amass funds, but rather in order to prepare provisions for his afterlife and supplies for his final destination, that is, the world to come. Mitzvot are the provisions and supplies that sustain a person in the afterlife. We learn above that working for a living is a fulfillment of Hashem's will. Moreover, we learn in chapter 3 of the same book that Hashem made it challenging for man to obtain his income in order to test whether he will abide by Torah's laws governing his work, that is, the prohibitions of stealing, working on Shabbat, or lending on interest, the mitzvah of paying workers on time, tithing, and commanding mitzvahs commandments. The person with bitahon who knows that his sustenance is determined by Hashem views his employment as a way of fulfilling the mitzvah of working for a living, as well as all other mitzvot relating to his field of work. So, hence his effort to earn a living is itself part of his service of Hashem. Accordingly, he will choose to engage in an occupation that he is sure will preserve his Torah observance and his proper way of life in the world. And he will not engage in an occupation that is in any way detrimental to his Torah observance, or that may bring him to defy the will of the Creator. Since the purpose of his employment is to fulfill Hashem's will and perform mitzvot, he surely will not choose an occupation that may prevent him from doing mitzvot, the requirements of Hashem, the commandments, or may cause him to sin, so that he should not through his occupation bring sickness upon himself rather than healing. Interesting that you can do these things. Bring sickness upon yourself rather than healing. His pursuit of an occupation is meant to better his situation in the Olam Haba, which is the healing, not worsen it. Sick, and that's the sickness, not that you physically jack yourself up. But one who does not trust in Hashem puts his trust in the means he employs for his livelihood, and he relies on those means as a way of amassing wealth. Consequently, he will not keep away from engaging in any of them, even at the expense of his Torah observance. He will engage in a praiseworthy occupation as well as a disgraceful one. Since his goal is solely to make money, he will do whatever it takes to achieve the goal without considering what effect his choice will have on his afterlife. Wow, powerful. That's good, right? Okay. We'll stop right there, and we will finish the second half of chapter 5. I hope that this mussar is really helping you to think differently about your life and make different choices. Choose life, like Moshe said. Choose Torah. Choose the things that's going to keep you with Hashem. Give your money to do some charities or people who need it around you. It's not for you. It's for your, help you out, but to help other people out, and all the different things, the differences between one who has bitahon, faith and reliance on Hashem, and the one who does not. Wow. So stay tuned for the second half of chapter 5.